Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton are now closing in on the magic numbers to clinch their nominations. Both are less than 100 delegates away. More election developments in just a minute, including some breaking Trump news today. And get this, breaking Sanders news. Sanders just agreed to do a Fox News debate, but will Hillary Clinton follow suit? We'll be here for another 59 minutes and 30 seconds in case she wants to call in. But we challenge her. Will you come to that debate? But first, we want to go out to Silicon Valley, where Mark Zuckerberg's holding that damage control meeting with conservatives about a half hour from now at Facebook, the social network under fire for alleged political bias following accusation it suppresses conservative stories in its trending news feed. Now, our very own Dana Perino will be at that meeting, and she joins us now from outside Facebook's headquarters in Menlo Park, California. Right before you go in, Dana, are you ready for the big smackdown? Are you going to take him, shake him, and say, Mark, conservatives matter too. Conservative lives matter too.
I was thinking of a hashtag that I could work on, like the Perino atomic elbow or something like that. I have one, believe it or not. I wish you guys were here because it is really interesting to get out of, our New York bubble or Washington, D.C. bubble and to come out here to a different bubble, really, and to have a chance to be at this meeting. I'll be back in New York tomorrow, and I'll report all about it. I'll be on the Kelly File later tonight. People are gathering. We're going to go there in just about 25 minutes, and so I go in with an open mind. I'm pretty curious about a couple of things. One, certainly about how the technology works and how the algorithm gets put together so that you figure out the news trends feed. But the other thing that I've learned, Eric, in just the interaction that we've had about this story over the past few days, is that there's some frustration about Facebook, not necessarily about news trends, and that conservatives have some sort of natural anxiety about being suppressed in terms of thought or news, and that social media was this great boon to conservatives because you could speak direct to people. When Facebook decided to get into the news business, it opened itself to this kind of criticism. And so I think that this meeting is at least their attempt to get in front of it in some way. All right, Dana, we're going to bring it around the table. Just one quick question. Some of the criticism that's been levied as to the group that Zuckerberg brought is that it looked like it tended to be anti-Trump crowd. But tell me, is the full spectrum of conservatism represented there today? Well, I think that even if I think they have 12 people coming, even within those 12, I don't know if it would encompass all the different types of conservatism. I mean, conservatism right now is a pretty big tent. And when it comes to Donald Trump, Barry Bennett, who had been on the Ben Carson campaign and done very well for Ben Carson, then joined the Trump campaign, and he is here, and he was quoted in the New York Times this morning saying that he was looking forward to the meeting. He thought that they had been very responsive, and so he'll be here, as well as I saw Arthur Brooks, and I know S.E. Cupp is going to be here, and again, I'll report all that I can tomorrow, but I think leading into it, I just have to go in with an open mind. I don't know what to expect. I don't have high expectations or low expectations. I just have a lot of curiosity, both about the policy and the content, and then just bigger picture moving forward. If Facebook's mission is to be inclusive, and now that it's such a huge company with so much power, the choice is Facebook's, right? Is how do you use that inclusivity, or how do you ensure it? And I think this meeting is kind of their first step to try to figure out, as we grow as a company, if we're going to continue to do more on the news side of things, then we have to be aware that conservatives have a natural suspicion when it comes to suppression of their ideas, their storylines, etc. All right, go ahead. We're bringing around Jedediah.
Dana, when this story broke, there seemed to be really swift action on the part of Facebook.
I'm not sure if I can hear you.
You got me?
Can you hear us?
Got me? No.
Can you hear us? Did we lose you? You there?
Lost you?
Alrighty then.
We'll get her back.
Oh, well, then I'll tell you what we'll do. Let's talk about what was going on, what Danny just said. Go ahead, Megan, you want to weigh in?
I wanted to ask you, I read this YouGov poll today that said that 68% of Republicans now have an unfavorable view. There's a 68% drop of Facebook. And when you have a PR disaster like this, which I think at this point you can call it a PR disaster, they're not calling in Dana Perino to Silicon Valley if it isn't. How do you possibly regain that trust? I don't like Mark Zuckerberg. I haven't liked him for a long time. I don't trust Facebook. I haven't trusted them since the RNC in 08 when they went out of their way not to include themselves at the convention, and then Randy Zuckerberg bragged about it, and it ended up being a total lie, and she got called out on it. How do you regain that trust?
Do you think, we'll bring it around, but don't you think by doing exactly what he's doing, bringing Dana Perino, S.E. Cupp? All right, well, hold on. We have Dana. Dana, Megan makes a good point. How does Facebook, how do you does Facebook regain your trust? What would you need to hear?
You're asking me, right?
Yeah.
Now I can hear you. So a couple of things. First of all, Facebook says that this is not their policy. And that doesn't make sense for it to be their policy because it doesn't make business sense to cut off sort of half the country from trusting you. The second thing is they have people here that are going to show us the algorithm, how that's put together. Eric, you brought up a good point, I thought, yesterday of talking about what is the difference between algorithms when it comes to different social media platforms like Twitter and Facebook. Different audiences, at least from my followers as I see, but what is the difference when it comes to the news trends? And here's the other thing. I'm a big proponent of getting face-to-face with people to have a conversation if you have a concern or a controversy. It makes communication a lot easier, so that's really kind of the first step to building and keeping trust is actually having a relationship with people. I don't make it out to Silicon Valley very often. I've never met Mark Zuckerberg. He might not even know who I am. But having a meeting like this along with all the other people that are assembled here, and maybe they'll have more in the future with other people, I think that's the first step to building trust, because that trust builds up over years, but it takes only a minute or two to destroy it.
Right. Dana, we got 3 questions left, about 6 minutes, so that said,
okay.
Jedediah.
Zuckerberg himself has been very politically outspoken. Climate change, immigration, numerous issues he's been very outspoken on. Do you think that was a mistake now? Do you think he regrets that looking back, and that maybe that's part of when people look at Facebook and what's going on, they may look at the story through that lens?
So I think that there is a separation that you can do in your mind in terms of politics and business, right? Your personal philosophy and your business. The problem, I think, for him is that he's been so public about his viewpoints when it comes to climate change and immigration. Absolutely his right to have them, but he does have to understand that that could bleed over into a story like this when conservatives are concerned there's been suppression of their viewpoints or their news stories. And then they look at, and they've seen the speeches that he's given and the donations and such like that of other people around Facebook, and it does make you wonder what's happening. So this could be a lesson for them as well, that if you're going to have a CEO that's this powerful and this public, that you do run a risk that your personal viewpoints are going to bleed over into the business.
Okay, Juan.
Dana, one of the things that strikes me in terms of the politics is that Joel Kaplan, who is a well-known Republican who clerked for Justice Scalia, works for Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook in D.C. So do you know Mr. Kaplan, and do you trust him to help repair this damage? Because part of his work in D.C. is to lobby conservatives to get them involved with Facebook. I think Rick Scott, Ben Carson have all used Facebook to their advantage in terms of their conservative campaigns.
Well, and not only that, but he has a responsibility of dealing with the federal government when it comes to law enforcement or CIA intel issues. Like we've talked about that on the show before, and how does Silicon Valley strike that balance and work appropriately with law enforcement when it needs to. And I also think that a lot of those campaigns, like Ben Carson's campaign, for example, really was fueled by its ability to utilize Facebook, share content with voters or potential voters. And remember, all of those donations, he ran very successful campaigns. Interestingly, Barry Bennett, who's going to be here at this meeting for Donald Trump's team, he was on Ben Carson's team and really ran that. So I think they understand the value of Facebook when it comes to conservatives. I think it's there. I think that this concern about suppression of news stories when it comes to conservatives ran the risk of upsetting some of those good partnerships. I will also leave you with this one. 2 weeks ago, Facebook was pressured to withdraw from the Republican convention by leftist groups, and Facebook said, no, we are definitely going to go to the Republican convention and the Democrat convention, but they weren't intimidated into leaving the Cleveland party that they're going to be throwing.
Okay,
and
Tom,
the partnerships, the technology that they do.
Tom Shalhoub.
Dana, I'm sure they're going to work out this thing with the algorithm. I don't really understand it. Maybe you can explain it to me when you come back. But about the culture of Facebook, I want to read you a quote from Jody Seth, who is spokesman for Facebook. And she said, when they hired Joel Kaplan, who was in the Bush administration, they said, we thought it was important to have a senior Republican in the office who could bring a conservative perspective to the table. What does that tell you about the culture of Facebook, that they had to go out and look for a conservative?
Well, you know, sometimes if you're in Silicon Valley, you might not be able to find one, right? So we've just like quadrupled the conservative population here in Silicon Valley for the day. Joel Kaplan and I are very good friends. We worked together at the Bush White House. I think he was an excellent choice. Again, it's relationships, right? He'd known Sheryl Sandberg when they were in college. And he's been able to do a lot of good work there. Here's the thing that I'm going to try to bring up today is that Silicon Valley does a very good job of being the champion of diversity. But when they think of diversity, I think they mostly think of gender and race. And that diversity of thought is also very valuable when it comes to growing a big company or to avoiding situations like the one that they're in now. So it's a first step, and I will be back tomorrow to tell you all about it.
All right. I cut you off, or I threw your question to Dana. You good?
Yeah, I just, I hope this isn't a PR stunt on Mark Zuckerberg's part to stop the bleeding of this PR disaster, and I just look forward to hearing what Dana has to say tomorrow. And you're very brilliant, and I trust you a lot more than I ever trusted him. Oh, she's gone.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll see what I can do. And I don't know a lot about technology, but I'll see if I can find out. All I know is that I push buttons and things happen. We're going to have a chance to learn a little bit more about what happens behind that.
All right. Dana, thank you very much. Have a great time. Best to everyone, all the conservatives out there. You guys did. You quite